The Selectmen's meeting to order for Monday, April 22nd, 2019, and as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Earlier this evening, we were in executive session to approve minutes from 2/25/19. We did approve those minutes and ended executive session. Anybody for a weekly briefing? Anybody for public comments and announcements?
Dave Nixon, CPC. I had a rough draft. I wanted you guys to have the finished draft of the new concept and pamphlet we'll be handing out at town meeting. So I contacted Mr. Ford, had a chat with him. We're all set there. I contacted Carolyn. She doesn't have an issue with it. And I'd like to just say that Kathy Green and Chris Rocket did a heck of a job putting this together. And I'd also like to say credit where credit's due. I've been on the board CPC for 3 years now, and we've been fighting about this, what kind of information to put out there to the general public. Chris had a great idea at one of our meetings, and he led the charge, and we followed him, and we followed up on it. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that's it. It's going to be quick.
Thank you, David.
Any questions? You're all set.
No, it's an excellent brochure.
Hand up the brochure so people can see it.
Oh, here, and I'll hand it up here, too.
This is what it looks like. You'll all have a copy of this at town meeting.
Excellent
Thank you, folks.
information. Thank you very much for all the hard work.
All right.
Excuse me. Anybody else for public comments and announcements? Ed?
Just a final announcement before we launch off into Art Weeks, starting this Saturday. One of the first events will be Saturday night at the Harwich Cultural Center Auditorium. The Harwich Cranberry Festival is sponsoring a concert, performance by the Resurrection Folk Project, music of the 60s and 70s, folk music. 4 very well-known professional musicians have played in many of the bands that they're going to be doing songs of, and I think those of you who grow up in that era will enjoy a very good performance.
Thank you, Ed.
7 o'clock.
Excuse me. Hearing nobody else for public comments and announcements, can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to present the consent agenda and move adoption of the items thereon, including the minutes of April 1st, 2019 regular session, April 8th, 2019 regular session, February 25th, 2019 executive session, a vote to authorize the town administrator as hearing officer for the cable renewer ascertainment hearing on May 2nd, 2019, approve a request for use of cable chase fund in the amount of $700, and approve a request for the use of cable chase fund in the amount of $694.98.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to new business. Public meeting, application for weekday entertainment license by Harwich Inn and Tavern, 77 Route 28, West Harwich, Mass. James Tsoukalos, owner, manager, and then we need to read the public hearing meeting. Will you read that, Ed?
Yes. Harwich Board of Selectmen, notice of public meeting, weekday entertainment license, April 22nd, 2019. The Harwich Board of Selectmen will hold a public meeting on Monday, April 22nd, 2019, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. in the Don B. Griffin Room, located at Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of consideration and possible vote on an application for weekday entertainment license by Harwich Inn and Tavern, 77 Route 28, West Harwich, Mass. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend the public meeting and provide information and comment relevant to this application. Signed, the Harwich Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority.
Thank you, Ed. So the public hearing is open, and if members in the audience have anything to comment on, we'll take those comments first. Just, when you come up to the podium, please identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Bob Carney. I live at 5 Mansion Street in West Harwich. I've been to these meetings, Larry knows, Ed knows, with the noise from the old place. You give them an outdoor entertainment license, and we had an agreement with the other place, and with the help of you people, we had a signed agreement saying there would be no outdoor amplified music. I had the first 5 years of hell in this town because of that place. It's been nice the last 3 years. I don't want to go back to that again. Having meetings, calling the police. I don't think you guys should even go near this. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay.
Bernie.
Hi, Ed. Bernie Magnuson, I live at the end of Mansion Street, and I'm about maybe, get a horse voice here, probably about maybe 300 feet away from the new tavern. It's a welcome addition to West Harwich in general. New ownership, we're not dealing with the same people we dealt with since 2005, so it's gone back that far. And we have stacks of paperwork to attest to that. What our concern is that it's the amplification throughout that neighborhood. During some of these meetings, and some of you folks had witnessed that they had an acoustical engineer, they had an acoustical engineer give a report of the noise in and around the neighborhood. And one of his comments was that with the prevailing wind coming off the sound from the south, southwest, and west, Mansion Street ends up like a wind tunnel. It's almost like an amplification going down there. And Mr. McManus was at an outing with the up in North Street at one point, and that was good almost a half a mile away. And because the wind was blowing from the old clatter, he could hear it down there at that meeting. And so it's a good concept to have entertainment. We're for it. If they have it indoors with amplification, if they want, fine. Like Bob said, there was an understanding that it would be indoors in the past and it wouldn't bother the neighbors, and it was well under control until they started putting noise out into the pool area. The pool, I understand, is going to be modified to be a patio dining area with, the owners have suggested, with amplified music. And I think they also had hoped to get that up until midnight at night. And, you know, we all start off asking $1 million or something with the hope that we're going to get something and just negotiate. And he's a good businessman. I've met him several times. He's very, very straightforward, and I think he's a very honest man, very well intended. However, there are some physical issues with that whole property in that. All that sound's going to permeate around that whole area. Somebody had to put in central heat in the house so they could sleep at night in the summertime. Did I say central heat? Central air conditioning, excuse me, okay. So if, I want them to have some sort of a license to do some entertaining. That's what the whole neighborhood would like. However, I think this has to be, at least initially, some limitations, I think, to the amplification outside. It's not going to work. If they want to have something light outside, just acoustics and so forth, fine. We welcome them to the neighborhood. They have a nice menu, the pricing's good, the place is spotless, it's totally different than what we saw years ago. However, you do have an issue with just the surrounding neighborhood. That's all. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Excuse me. Any further comments from the public?
Hi, I'm James Chukwas, the owner of the Harwich Inn and Tavern. I'd like to thank you for having me here today. I'd like to try to be judged on myself and not the past acts of others. And I hope that you would give me the same kind of license that most everyone in the town has outside, and I can be judged on myself on how I conduct myself outside there. The closest residence that is here today that spoke is 260 feet away from the closest spot that I could play it to their front door. And I certainly am not in any intentions of blasting loud music down the street. It's not comfortable for those that are around it in my business, and it's not comfortable for them. But certainly, I like to have the same kind of license that everybody else has in the town. I thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Fitzpatrick, and I live at 18 Mansion Street. And I'm new in the neighborhood, but I've heard this story, and I'm worried too, that I'm very sensitive to noise. I don't want to live in a noisy neighborhood with music blasting during weeknights and everything. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open up to the board, questions from the board. Excuse me.
Okay, I have, this,
If I could, just to clarify, this is a continuation from when? This was before us once before.
It was,
And we voted to continue it.
we didn't,
I'm
this,
not
this
remembering
particular, part of it was not on the agenda.
I
right.
think we did.
We voted part of it,
Voted the license, the victual.
but not
And they
the,
came back with this.
Right.
but this was a, because it wasn't on the agenda, Michael, we moved it back. Well, my comment is, I appreciate the new owner and listening. I guess I would like to move a little more cautious, and I take from our past experience, and I don't want to hang you on the past experience, but I would be more comfortable with not having amplified music outside, having music but not amplified. And I did want to just question the 12 midnight. Is that common with the other? I thought we actually, we stuck mainly
just-
with 10 PM.
Through you, Madam Chair, on that topic, we did spend, the board spent a lot of time, and obviously administration and police
Right.
spent a lot of time looking at Harwich Port specifically, and we did cut it off at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But we didn't really go too much beyond the Harwich Port area in terms of the board's
Okay.
approvals.
I was trying to recall, because it seemed we were talking about 10 o'clock at most places, but my recommendation would be 10 o'clock and non-amplified outside. But for its
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
I'm gonna pass for now, I'm just trying to find the minutes.
Ed?
No, I think, from what, past history and what we do in other areas, we don't allow outside music at till 12 o'clock. And I'm not sure, do we have restrictions elsewhere on amplified or non-amplified music? I can't remember.
Not
The
that-
only other conversation I remember that went later than the 10 o'clock was
Yeah.
when we talked about Jake Rooney's, and that was inside.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think so. Excuse me.
and I,
You are talking about like 8 o'clock or 12 o'clock. What they had is an indoor license. We let them have the indoor entertainment until 1 o'clock, and that was the arrangement that we had with you people. We had the
Yeah.
contract somewhere. And and this 8 o'clock, you know what? I have my supper out on my deck in the summertime. And I'm probably 300 feet from that, and I can't even hear each other talk. That's how bad it was. So
remember.
outdoor entertainment, outdoor amplified music is, I think is just out of it. It's crazy. The neighborhood, has been nice and quiet for 3 years. Leave it that way.
Thank you. Ed, did you want to
well,
continue?
and then the other question, I know we had to eliminate amplified music, but we also, the cutoff time wasn't 10 o'clock. No, and, it's, I don't know how many years ago it was. I can't remember what we,
So,
nine-
excuse me, I just want to
8
I
o'clock.
just want to clarify that you can't speak from your seat. You have to go up to the podium and identify yourself, so, just for the sake of people at home.
Hello, I'm Mary Albus. I'm sorry I'm late. Hello to members of the board. I live at 77 Smith Street. This folder is a folder of all information from 17 different meetings over 3 years about this issue. And our neighborhood is really happy that this bar and tavern has been taken over again, and we hope it makes a go of it. We wish the owners, the new owners, no ill will whatsoever. We hope it's a great spot in West Harwich. West Harwich needs it. However, there are certain things that should be considered. One, besides the history, there was a sound engineer who was part of these 3 years of meetings. And the sound engineer found that in our neighborhood, the geography of our certain neighborhood is very unique. If you can picture Mansion Street and where the Harwich Inn and Tavern is, this sound engineer got up at this very podium and said that the sound actually it's a conduit down Mansion Street, and it flows down Mansion Street and then into our neighborhood. And he found that to be very unique, decibels aside, meters aside, that he found that the geography was unique for sound carrying into our neighborhood. Add to that a southwest wind, which is the prevailing wind in the summertime, and you have problems.
A previous speaker did mention
Okay.
that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, Ed, you were with me as well. We did some sound tests actually at what at that time was the Claddagh. And when I was by the pool, the sound was fine. It was, you know, a couple of performers, and that was fine. But you go into our neighborhood, and it's very different. You hear the drum beat going in the neighborhood. The sound carries, and I can't explain it. I'm not a sound engineer. I'm just a Latin teacher. So, but you just don't, you can't figure it out, and it's just very unique. It really upset our neighborhood for many, many years. It took many years for us to work with the board to come up with a solution for this. And what we would like you to consider, respectfully, is to go back to the original license of what the Claddagh, the last license that they had. I think we should proceed with caution here. We know that despite the good intentions of the new owners, that there are unique issues here. The original license, or the last license, which was dated June 6, 2012, acoustic entertainment only, limit of 2 performers at a time, hours of entertainment, 4 to 8 p.m., days of entertainment, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Of course, Sunday, the license is issued by the state. No brass, horns, or drums allowed. And one of the things that the sound engineer found was that drums carry very uniquely the sound of drums. It's that booming beat, that deep beat, and also that human voices carry in a different way too. And if I remember to past years sitting out on my deck, it was often, you could hear the music, but it was often that relentless beat of the drum over and over again for hours at a time. And then also the sound of human voices, you know, clapping, yelling, singing along. So West Harwich, it's a very quiet neighborhood. We love our neighborhood. We love Bell's Neck. We feel like we just got on top of this. We just got our summers back where we could sit out on our decks again and enjoy the summertime. We were forced to go inside. I'll be honest with you. Ed, you came in our neighborhood. You heard it. We had to close our windows and doors. That's how loud it was. My neighbors across the street who worked 60 to 80 hours a week, they couldn't go to sleep. It was this relentless beat. So I believe that the new owners have good intentions, but I think that the history is a long one, and it's a very unique history, very different from Harwichport and the establishments there. So my neighbors and I just urge you to proceed with caution, and we found that it's easy to kind of give a license for 6 days a week for 12 hours or 8 hours at a time, but it took 3 years for that license to be revoked and for us to get to the bottom of this and to come to a solution. So we'd love to see you, like, baby steps. Acoustic license would be great, maybe a limited one for a couple of months, see how it goes, and then possibly entertaining some kind of other idea. But I'm here to tell you that it was really tough. It was really hard for our neighbor, and it really changed the character, and we didn't feel good about it. We came 17 times here. We hired a lawyer. we didn't wish the Claddagh any ill will, but, you know, we would go home at night and we didn't see like, yay, we had a victory. We're like, oh, geez, you know? We want to work together. We love West Harwich. We love business in West Harwich. So we just urge you to please think about, consider an acoustic license and baby steps for this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
One follow-up question, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I also have 4 letters from neighbors here, and if you'd allow me to read them, I will. Otherwise, I can just give them to you
I think
for
we
the
can just
record.
hand them in to,
Okay.
hand them in to Chris.
And if I could just ask one question,
Yes, sir.
with what you were just explaining, was that outdoors or indoors?
That was outdoors.
Okay, so the acoustic only was an outdoor
It was an
component.
outdoor license. I believe the indoor license was granted to them, but at some point, both licenses were revoked because the music was also carrying outside. And I think when that license was reinstated, it was told that you needed an air conditioning, they needed an air conditioning system, windows and doors had to be closed. And I think the Carneys are probably, and curtains, the Carneys hear that indoor music, or the indoor music, where we on Smith Street don't. But it was, I think it was pretty loud indoors. So, and I don't remember what happened. Bob could probably speak to that once. Once they closed the doors, they shut the windows. They were propping everything open. It was hot in there, and it was pretty loud. So at one point we were being blasted on both ends, outdoor and indoor, and then the license was revoked for quite a while. And then the license that I read was reinstated for a 45-day period, and there were no problems. Then it was quiet for the rest of the time.
And the acoustic that went to 8 PM.
Yes.
And was not obviously.
It was not amplified,
Not
no.
amplified, but also no, as you said before, no drums, no,
No drums, no brass,
sorry.
and no horns. So, and that worked, and 4 to 8 PM, as I said, it took many years to get to that point, but it worked. It was the compromise that finally worked, where the institution was allowed to have outdoor entertainment, but the neighbors were also allowed to enjoy the peace and quiet of our neighborhood in the summertime, which we deserve. I mean, I can understand making money here on the Cape, and it's a short season, but the neighbors also deserve to enjoy their homes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, restate your name.
Hey, Bob Carney, 5 Mansion Street. To tell you the truth, what happened is when the police came to our house on the 3rd time they came over, there was so much, they could hear the noise, and they went over and they closed it down. Then we had to come back here for another meeting, and we voted. It was a vote that they had no outdoor entertainment license amplified. That's why it was nice and quiet around the neighborhood. Once you talk an amplification, the neighborhood's gone. Thanks.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to admit that coming to the meeting, I was more inclined to come up with some sort of compromise, probably more music than what the neighbors were thinking of. But I've been interested in acoustics and psychoacoustics since I was 10. I've been in a band for 25 years. I put in countless sound reinforcement systems. Now, the more common problem is you get a suck out of frequencies in a room, and you have to compensate for that. But there is that occasion where you wind up with something that actually acts as a baffle and it amplifies everything. There's a reason that you're hearing this stuff. Another way of describing low frequencies or bass frequencies is ground frequencies. They travel along the ground and they excite things. I'm not sure that even on an acoustic basis, if you had drums and/or an upright bass, that you wouldn't be hearing it, because if you're in that phenomena, and I wasn't aware there was a report done because I had left the board at that point, there is virtually no way, it's not decibels, it actually rides the ground. So I don't see how you're going to be able to get around that with any kind of engineering even. Just my 2 cents.
I understand. I love music. But you don't like music when you're trying to sleep at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you're have to close your windows, and then it gets so hot, I had to put in central air just so I could go to sleep at night. I mean, it might be a phenomenon, but I'll tell you, it's true, and it's loud.
I'm actually agreeing with you. It excites the foundation of the house. Close the window, but your house actually continues to amplify it.
Robert Albus, 77 Smith Street. I'll be quick. I just want to thank you for having this meeting and having the institutional memory that this was an issue a few years ago. And I just want to repeat what I've heard a couple of people say, is that we need to proceed with caution. It's much easier to expand a license than to revoke one or scale one back. It affects so many more people than the residents of the neighborhood. It puts a strain on the police department, getting these calls all the time, and I think they have a lot more to do these days than they did 5 or 6 years ago. It also puts a strain on the institution, the business, and also the musicians who have been hired to perform there. One of the unfortunate things that happened a few years ago is people who thought they had some steady work through the summer found out that that had been taken away from them. So again, try it on a much more limited basis. If things go well, I don't think anyone's going to complain if we expand it a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the board? Any kind of inclination? Michael?
Actually, maybe if the business owner would stand up, if you would just tell the board what your intent is with the outdoor. I mean, the application is very basic. We set it up very basic. Could you get up and give us kind of an idea of what you're thinking?
Well, on the outside, I plan on having non-bands. I'm not interested in having a 5-piece band out there blasting away like maybe they did last time. An acoustical guitarist who will sing. Without a small amplifier, you wouldn't hear it from one end to the other, which somebody just, and you need to hear from you to hear me speak to you. That's my intentions, not to have large speakers. I'm not blasting out the neighborhood. But it would be great to have an acoustical guitarist out there who can sing, and I have some small amplification so they can hear from one end of the yard to the other.
And have you looked at any of the material that was mentioned tonight? Have any of the neighbors met with you to show you the studies that were done?
They met with me to urge me not to have it. They did not show me any studies or anything like that, and certainly I would have to do my own, obviously. I don't know who they hired and what they did. And I do understand the history of the clatter. I've heard it from everyone, and I'm just not them.
So I would say that I appreciate you saying that and saying that you're not them, and I appreciate everybody that came tonight and spoke and the misery that they dealt with under the former owners. My sense to the board would be to approve the indoor, as asked for the indoor, and then further information required for the outdoor. I would like to see the studies that were done. I mean, the letters that were brought from the other neighbors. I'd like to see the input, see the studies, and then also encourage you to put together a plan for outdoor entertainment, along with where they'll be set up, reasonable hours of operation that you think, and what you just said. Because the way our entertainment licenses are issued, they really are one entertainment license, and I certainly don't want to put the police department through any more of what's happened in Harwichport, and I think we're finally getting some harmony in Harwichport. Some may disagree, but I would like to see a little bit more of a plan on what you're going to do, as well as have some time to talk to the police chief and see this information that was talked about.
Larry?
I'm in general agreement, although I still want to look at the time. I think at 10 o'clock. And I'm not as uncomfortable with outside if it's acoustic only. Now, that may not be practical from your sense. I would be definitely against amplified music at all. But I would, as a caution, and I do remind, because most of you people were all, you're here 70 times before on the last ones. I remember that discussion. That owner lost complete control of the facility. You know, people were playing, and he unfortunately didn't have the wherewithal to tell them to stop. And so I do want to be cautious, but from what everyone's talking about, they seem to be more concerned about the amplified outside. So I would definitely be opposed to that until you have some history. Maybe a little speaker to make sense. I would like the board to consider 10 o'clock rather than midnight as well.
I'm fine with that. It's perfect.
Okay. Ed, did you have any additional comments?
Well, I'd like to look at the history, because my belief, my memory is that the hour limitation on the outdoor music, whether it was amplified or not amplified, was always 8 o'clock, and then the operation reverted to having the music inside from 8 to midnight or 1 o'clock, is my memory. It had never been allowed past 8.
Well, and just to clarify, I think you're saying 10 o'clock inside.
No, outside.
You're not saying outside.
I think 10 o'clock, I'd go with that, 10 o'clock inside.
Yeah, you're talking inside.
And not amplified outside, but I'm not opposed to having any music at all outside. May not be practical.
Right. But just to clarify, no amplification outside, but the 10
Period.
o'clock time frame you gave was for inside.
I mentioned it for everywhere.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to stopping if that's that seems more severe than we've done anywhere else.
Well, even at the final agreement on times and limitations, music was allowed till midnight inside, and with keeping the doors closed and the windows, it didn't seem to present the impact on the neighborhood that it did when they had the doors wide open, because they didn't have any air conditioning and it was too hot inside.
But my only reluctance on this continuing to go back is we kept changing the times because, quite frankly, the owner never followed the time limits we had.
Yeah, well,
And so that's kind of a bad way to compare.
Don, do you have anything?
I agree with that. I tend to feel, and Michael, I tend to feel like we could study the outside one, but I'd be inclined to approve the indoor one as requested until midnight.
Okay.
And wait for more information, because I'm not convinced that they'll be able to get around the outdoor problem. Some of that's omnidirectional, and I don't see how they're gonna fix it. But I'd be willing to make a motion that we accept the application for indoor entertainment from the hours of 12 noon to 12 midnight.
I'll second it.
Michael seconded. Any other discussion?
I'd be inclined to vote for it if you'd add to the motion with the proviso that all outside doors and windows are kept closed during performances.
Did I miss saying that? Well, that's in there.
Okay.
Second.
So second still on the table, so moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the?
I'll go with that.
I would like to make sure that we're clear that, because I do recognize that this is a new business owner. Most neighbors spoke favorably about the new business owner. I don't want to eliminate the outdoor entertainment.
No.
See the need,
No.
certainly,
But bring it
for us to
Well,
look at this,
right.
but I would like to see the information, if that could be copied and given to administration, the studies. And then maybe have the business owner come forward with a, kind of a statement with what he wants to do outside, so that we have something actually to vote on and set parameters.
Right, so that's the thought, is we'll do the indoor license and then bring it back for the
I can move with
outdoor.
that, because I don't want to just move away from it automatically.
Well, and we would include, to that point, the additional letters, the sound studies, and a statement in a plan from the business owner on how an outdoor entertainment, with the understanding that in the past, it's been 4 to 8, correct?
Madam Chair, I also neglected to include in the motion the same statement that's made in all the other entertainment licenses about sound not to emanate.
Right, from 150.
It's included in
Yeah.
my
But that's in our bio,
That's
It may be,
standard.
but it's also on every license that we issue. So
Right.
I want to make sure that I state that too in the motion, if that was acceptable.
Okay,
Yep.
so the motion's still on the table, including the not to exceed
Not to exceed
150
150
feet,
feet.
right?
And I think that last comment, I think on the 150-foot rule, our rule is it can't exceed the property by 150 feet. So if we grant you a permit and the neighbors are not happy, all they have to do is call the police department. If it's found beyond 150 feet, after a certain amount of complaints, we take the license away. And I know that that's not what you want to do.
I think actually the standard, though, is inside the building, it can't X the premises, so I think having the doors and windows closed is important. Outside is 150, clearly audible,
Right.
only that
clearly
you guys have had me be the hearing officer numerous times, so.
Right. But, and so,
But it was still.
so we have the motion, it's been seconded. Is there any additional discussion?
Now we have another
Oh,
comment.
sorry, go ahead.
The original
Can
license.
you just restate your name?
I'm sorry, Mary Albus, 77 Smith Street. The last license I remember seeing that the Claddagh had, it said noise not to exceed the premises. So is that different from 150 feet?
That's for inside.
Okay, this was an outside license. It
Right.
said noise not to exceed the premises.
But if we go inside only, then that,
Right, right. I'm just saying, I'm looking to the future to a
Right.
possible outdoor license and just saying that that was my understanding for noise not to exceed the premises, which means any sound that leaves the boundaries of that property would be in violation.
On the indoor entertainment
indoor.
license?
I'm talking
No,
about
so
out-
the
outside,
outdoor is
yes.
150 feet.
It's 150
We're
feet.
not considering the outdoor right now.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're not,
No,
right.
no. The other thing I wanted to say is I believe the sound engineer's report was from March 2011, and I'm sure that's part of the public record.
Thank you.
I'm sure that's in the, Ann Stidel might have that information, I'm sure, from those hearings.
That's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Just on that, I don't know if we have to keep that as a public record, so if they do have it, if they can provide it, we'll certainly check the records, but
All right.
just.
Excuse me, can you come back up to the podium for a second? Just do you know if, just in terms of that record for the sound study, do you have access to that? Does anyone in the neighborhood?
Yes, I do. If
Okay.
you would like a copy, I can give
Yeah,
you my
if-
Just in
copy.
case we can't
So
find it in the
certainly,
files.
I'll get that from my file.
Thank you. Okay, so our motion is on the indoor entertainment license from noon till midnight with windows, doors closed, noise not to exceed the premises. And any additional conversation? No. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So we will bring this back in terms of the outdoor entertainment. We'll get all of this info for the board, and then if you would provide your information, a plan and an idea of how you would set up. And Chris, I don't know, what's the time frame on bringing that back, do you think?
I think as quick as he wants. Just one thing perhaps on the, we do for the liquor licenses require the layout of, the
Yeah.
establishment, and maybe for these, for outdoor, it may be worthwhile to have kind of a layout to see how he's gonna situate it
Diagram.
and make sure, a
Yeah.
diagram of it.
Right, so that's when
He can call the office, so and I'll go over, we'll
Okay,
find somebody.
great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have to close the public,
Yeah.
No, it was just a public meeting, it wasn't a public
okay,
hearing.
so we don't have to, well, it was a hearing, and we had
It
that,
was,
okay,
it was a hearing continued from 3/18.
so we don't have to
So
technically close
techno-
it.
no,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. The request for a speed zone change on Queen Anne Road. Chris, do you want to go, or is the chief?
I'm gonna defer to
Okay.
the chief for the overview.
Good evening, Chief.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dave Gilmet, Chief of Police. You have in your packets the request, my memo regarding the request for the speed zone change on Queen Anne Road. I know there are some neighbors here that are willing to speak in favor of this. I will defer to the board as to how you want to proceed. Would you like to hear them first and have me wrap up, or
Sure,
hear me first?
whatever you're comfortable, it's fine.
All right, I think I'd prefer to have them speak first, and then I can kind of close it out, okay?
Okay,
So I
that's fine.
believe, Stacy, were you planning on saying a few words? Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Stacy Robichaud, 727 Queen Anne Road. I've been working for a while with the chief and the town regarding the speeding on Queen Anne Road. I've lived in my home 12 years, and in the last few years, the traffic and the noise has become unbearable. You've created quite a commercial district at the end of Queen Anne Road with many commercial businesses, the transfer station, and the road has also become a cut-through for people from Chatham and also 18-wheelers. If you have seen on that road anytime, the traffic and those trucks going down there and dump trucks is just crazy. When I was working in 2017 with Sergeant Goshgarian, he did a traffic study in August. It was a slow time, being late August, and the meter didn't work completely when he did this study, but there's over 30, and back in 2017, there was over 3,500 vehicles a day traveling on that road. I've been working with the chief recently, and in June, we had a meeting with a number of our neighbors. A lot of them that were there in June are not here tonight, but we have some other neighbors that are here. And they're voicing the same concerns: the volume, the speed, the visibility lines pulling out of those side streets, and just the type of vehicles and the traffic. We're looking at, the chief, we also in June had a member from the Cape Cod Commission there. He did a road study and was showing that the speed limit on that road, if you start from the rotary going down, there's 3 speed limit changes, and they happen every 1/6 of a mile to 1/8 of a mile change. They go from 30 to 35 to 40 to 30, they go up and down. And the chief was surprised when he drove that road and said, I didn't realize it until you brought it to my attention, how much the road, it goes right to 40, right in front of my house. And they're not going 40, those trucks and those cars. And if you try to pull out, when my kids were learning to drive, I said, when it's clear, you go, and you go fast. You pull out because you're gonna get hit by the cars coming down. The study was showing that since the road speed limits were established, way back whenever they were in 40s, 50s, I don't know when they were established, that the area where I live, from a good part from 39 up into almost the stop sign, is now thickly settled. And it's the only section that's 40 miles an hour. So working with the chief and with the Cape Cod Commission, we have a study, and we're looking at trying to get that section reduced to 35. I would love it to be 30, but I think the studies are showing that 35 is more favorable for that area. It's also a bus route. People get on and off the bus there. There's no sidewalks, which is, standard in town, which small towns. But we'd like to see if we can get your vote in favor of this before we send an application to the state to request the speed limit to be changed.
Thank you. Michael?
I only have one question. Was our traffic safety committee, were they any part of this or no?
Defer to the chief.
Yes, this has kind of been bounced around a lot since I arrived as chief in 2015. I think shortly after that, Stacy reached out to me regarding truck traffic and the volume on the road, Michael. So it did go to the traffic safety committee. Unfortunately, Stacy couldn't make the meeting. They did discuss it, and then it was referred back to the police department.
Okay, thank you. One more.
Go ahead.
If it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for speed zone change on Queen Anne Road as presented.
Second.
If you have a comment, yeah.
Hi, my name's Robert Hampton, and I live at 9 Vacation Lane. Periodically, I don't live there permanently. I have a good perspective on this problem because my family's had that property for 60 years. And I spent about 6 weeks up here a couple of summers ago, and I think I sent you a letter. I was shocked when I realized the volume of traffic on the road. I remember when John Joseph Road was a dirt road, right? So that's how long ago it was. And I think this is simply a case of unintended consequences. The commercial development along Queen Anne Road west of 124, and then the development of the East Harwich area. And development happens, but what's also happened is, as Stacy said, the entire road has become very built up. It is what I call barbell population. In the summer, a lot of families with little kids and a lot of seniors. They walk down to the ponds. Over the years, that road has been widened, probably widened and straightened and flattened to try to make it safer. But, again, unintended consequences, the speeds have gone up. The volume of commercial traffic, both from the West Queen Anne Road district, as well as Stacy said, I think a lot of large trucks serving Chatham or the East Harwich district. It's the preferred cut through now for Chatham because I think if any of you drive through the East Harwich Business District, with all the traffic lights and the increased development, the traffic slowed. And ironically, that rotary put at 39 in Queen Anne Road, which was meant to prevent more horrible accidents, because that was a horrible intersection, has actually facilitated that as a shortcut, because there's nothing stopping anybody from the time they get on Queen Anne Road at 124 to 39. It's just a straight shot. And then as Stacy said, the egress is in and out. You know, my father passed away a couple years ago. He lived there full time in his 90s, and he could no longer exit Vacation Lane at Queen Anne Road because that is a very blind spot. And those trucks, because it is a little bit of an incline, and I don't like to call anybody out, but Barrows is a great example. You know, I don't know if they downshift, but they are laying those trucks over that hill, and they can't stop. Or all the pickup trucks, the landscaping guys with the trailers. Even if they were going 40, which they're not, there's no way they can stop with a trailer like that at that speed. So I would urge you to think about not 35, but 30. But I don't think it's, we have to stop there. I actually think we need to think about the residential nature of that neighborhood and think about other ways we can both minimize commercial traffic and slow the traffic down. So maybe that means putting more stop signs throughout the road, other speed reducing mechanisms, because I think, sadly, it's just not a diminution in the quality of life for the residents, but I think it's a tragedy waiting to happen. So I have a letter that I wrote to the chief, I believe last year, that I'll happy to submit to you, and
Thank you.
I look forward to your response.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we got a motion on the table, and I have no interest in driving a bus over the police chief, but I live right off the roundabout, one road in towards Chatham. There's a school bus stop there, and you've heard me say this before, Chief. In waiting for the school bus, I taught driver's ed for 15 years, and I'd put me up against any one of the officers you got about being able to judge feet per second to come up with an estimated speed off of landmarks. And the roundabout speed limit's 15 miles an hour. It's not just that section of Queen Anne Road. There is a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is in effect on the easterly leg of that from the roundabout to Chatham. Nobody goes 30, absolutely nobody. And they wind up using the dip in the road as it comes up to Cemetery Road. They can't even hold the curve of the road because the centrifugal force is pulling them across the line. The fact of the matter is, you could make it 5 miles an hour. I don't care what you make it. It's not going to work unless there's a real high enforcement for that road in general. Because part of it is you come from the industrial zone where it is 40, and people keep thinking that it's 40 forever. The 15-mile-an-hour speed limit for the roundabout is in effect until there is a speed limit sign that says otherwise, which is not until the road after mine. So you explain to me how people are going 45 by the time they get to my road. It just is because they don't think anybody's going to enforce anything. At one point, a kid almost got run over with me because I don't trust the traffic on a road in a rural area like Harwich to go across to the bus, and lodged a complaint, and so did the bus driver, and it was completely ignored because they said, well, you know, the guy was saying he had to get to his doctor's appointment. It's irrelevant to me what the reason is. The bottom line is, I know it's challenging, especially in the other area, because half the road's in Chatham and half the road's in Harwich, depending on what side of the road, in Queen Anne Road, that you're traveling between 137 and the roundabout. It starts becoming Chatham on the southerly section. There has to be some sort of plan, and I'm probably going to wind up going 32 and getting nailed myself, but there has to be some sort of plan to enforce this. It doesn't matter what the speed limit is. people are going crazy driving because they think they can get away with it.
Well, I appreciate the input and the support for this measure, which is one of a few that the traffic unit, along with the neighbors, have discussed. We thought this was a reasonable attempt to get the speed limit lowered, and I understand exactly what you're talking about, and this road is labeled as one for all officers to hit on a regular basis. That is already being done. Maybe not to your satisfaction, but it is on the list, and it is being done because I've been checking with our traffic unit. Other than that, one of the other measures that I'm hoping to put on that roadway are those speed, if I'm getting this right, speed feedback signs. I refer to them as like a radar-enhanced speed limit sign. And it gives you your speed. It's right under the speed limit sign. It gives you your speed, and it flashes a light at you if you're going over the speed limit. It certainly works whenever I pass one, I can tell you that much. So, and I know Barnstable seems to utilize them a lot, and I like the idea, and we've put them on our capital plan. So, and this road is earmarked to be the first recipient of those signs. So we are giving it some thought, and we're obviously continue to be open to any other suggestions, but it's an ongoing difficult issue, and we can't be there all the time, which is why we have to look at other measures beyond, constant enforcement. But that's always the top of the list in everybody's, suggestion box, which I don't disagree with. I'm just saying we can't be there all the time. It's just not possible.
Thank you, Chief. Chris? Oh, hold on one second, I'm just gonna go to the town
Just,
administrator.
Madam Chair, just a reminder to folks, really, this is just a request. In order
Right.
for us to change any weight posted signs, as a state law, we have to have a traffic study done, we have to have a traffic engineer certify the speeds, and then the board, as roadway commissioners, will make a determination as to what's gonna be implemented. So this is really just a first step. We could have done it ourselves, but we wanted to make sure that something's coming, so we wanted to give you guys a good firm heads up.
Can I comment on that very briefly before?
Sure.
Because I wanted to press the chief on that aspect of it, because when I've talked to the Jerry at the Traffic Safety Committee,
Yep.
he's been discouraged because Queen Anne's been on the radar for some time.
Yep.
And we can't seem to get, to your point, Chris, get the state to change the speed limit. What makes are you more comfortable that this will actually have an effect? And
No, well, as you
Or
know,
have we done, do we need to do more ourselves to get response?
would you like to reply
Well,
first, Chris?
just, I want to caution, I did a lot of traffic in previous, just for folks that are in the audience. If that speed study comes back and it says that the speed limit should be 45, then we would have a legal obligation, if we were going to change the speed limits on the white signs, to put in the 45. The one thing I noticed in terms of reading this material is that he said that it was more thickly settled than it was when the original speed study is done. So the character of the neighborhood has changed. I think that may give us more of a chance. It's worthwhile to have somebody look at it. But I just want people to know that if the state comes back and says it's 45, what I've done in other towns, not that I'm proud of this, but I've asked people to ignore it, and then we just leave the signs up that are actually legally up, and we don't increase the speeds. But, it's gonna depend on what
My
that study
question is,
comes
are we
back.
doing all we can to make our case to the state?
Yeah, well, this is a first step. Steve Tupper did an outstanding job on the letter. His people went out and did the speed zone study as well as our traffic people. And, the 85th percentile is that magic number. I don't understand why, really, but it is the magic number of the speed that the state is going to look at. And in this case, it's very close to the 40. It's just a couple of miles an hour over, actually, the 85th percentile. However, I think what Chris alluded to and what Steve mentions in his letter is a segment of that roadway actually is considered to be thickly settled in that 40-mile-an-hour zone, which to me makes no sense whatsoever. And I think it is a result of build-out in that area and that being an old speed zone. And I think that will give us some credibility, hopefully, with the state. And if they want more information, more studies, or more options, we'll certainly work with them and give them whatever they want.
Thank you, Chief.
I just wanted to.
So I just have to remind you that you have to.
Robert Hampton, thank you. I think that's a great suggestion, those signs. Well, I was just going to share with you, I live full-time in Bedford, New York, and we have state roads running through the town, and we have the same problem. And so they put these things up. And I think basically, you know, maybe for the first few weeks, people were like, whoa, and they slowed down, but, you know, then it sort of reverted back to bad behavior. They've replaced them now with photo enforced ones. So now it flashes, and it says photo enforced, $200 fine. It's like traffic crawls through there now. So I'm just maybe saving you the two-step process of having to do the flashing one. That's one. I just want to say the other thing. I also think it's very strange to me that I drive up Route 6 through parts of Eastham and Wellfleet and Truro. Many places that's a wide road, even a 4-lane road at times, and the speed limit's 30 miles an hour. So I don't think 30 miles an hour on and that's a commercial road, on a thickly settled, what has become a well-known cut-through. Even the Chatham ambulance takes Queen Anne Road now to get to Route 6, is asking too much. And then lastly, I think enforcement is critical. And I think part of the challenge is it's the commuters in the early morning, starting at 5 in the morning and then after 7 at night. I mean, they're going 60 miles an hour on that straightaway. There is no way they're going 40 miles an hour. So I think enforcement has to be over a wider range of time. And just because of the thickly settled nature, there's a lot of new developments and new roads. So when there was this study, I think, Stacy, remind me if I'm wrong, the problem is because there's so many roads that people are slowing down to turn into their roads. So I think it screws the data up, frankly, about what the speed of the drive-through traffic is. So I would just keep that in mind too when you do these studies, because if people are slowing down to turn into all these little roads, then they're not going as fast. A number of times last summer, driving that straightaway, as I was slowing down to turn into Vacation Lane, as I was driving west from the Rotary, people would actually pass me. I was going to make a left, but people would pass me on that straightaway on Queen Anne Road. So, but anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on,
I just wanted to, a lot of folks think that, you know, we could take pictures of the license plate. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, that has not been deemed to be something that's permissible, so we're not allowed to do that. I would say, and I know I've had this conversation with the chief, you know, those radar machines actually do record date and times. And one of the things I've done in the past is if you know that you have certain people at certain times a day, you do more selective enforcement in those times where you know you have speeders. So to the resource question of you can't have somebody sitting out there all day, if you know that they happen to be people at 6 in the morning on their way to work or what have you, we can do enforcement in those time spots and kind of catch people. So I want to try to encourage people to try to follow those signs to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, that was kind of what I was saying. I mean, not to get too far in the weeds here, but the 10-mile-an-hour difference is about, what, 14.5 feet a second, if my math is right? They're not doing 40. So the difference between 30 and 40 is really not what we're trying to get at. I live in that area, and he's right. It's 60. My guess is that a lot of people are doing 50. I now take my girl to school heading east from the Rotary, from the roundabout, heading towards Chatham, and I do 30 miles an hour, and people are riding up my trunk because they're just not doing 30. And that is a 30-mile-an-hour zone, so I don't want to get everybody's hopes up here. You'll put 30-mile-an-hour signs up, and the world will be a better place, because it's not going to be a better place unless there's a credible risk for people that do that speed, thinking that I'm going to do that speed, but I might get a ticket. I know that, speaking of the Route 6, Wellfleet and that area, those high enforcement signs helped me a lot when I was teaching kids, because I said, why do you suppose they've got a sign that's this big that says high enforcement? It's because there's going to be high enforcement. So there's got to be some real credibility to the speed limit sign. And if you don't wind up pulling somebody over and giving them tickets so they tell a friend, nothing's gonna happen. You can change it from 40 to 30, and I don't care. I'm supporting that, but it wouldn't matter if the state agreed, because they're doing 50 on the 30-mile-an-hour area, too.
Michael?
I agree with Don, but we're assuming there's gonna be a speed limit change. Our action tonight is based on a report that was done by Steve Tupper, with help from the residents. We're really not being asked to act on anything else. We could bring back an agenda item, have a public hearing, have residents come, do more work, but tonight seems like a very specific action based on a report that's in our packet.
Well, I was actually asking for enforcement in the interim.
Did
think
you
he
want,
heard you.
did you want to have a?
Hi, I'm Dave Callahan from Clearwater Drive. I drive this road frequently, pull out of Rainbow Way, which has probably the worst sightlines on the stretch of road. But my question doesn't have to do with my pulling out, but the letters that Stacy was kind enough to send around to the neighborhood, the people on the board of our neighborhood, the high intensity, well, the densely populated area image here shows that it's densely populated from the traffic circle at Route 39 all the way out to Obed Brooks. Yet, they're extending the 35-mile-an-hour line. They're starting it up at Oyster Pond. So my question is, why is there this overlap of area between Obed Brooks and Oyster Pond, which is at 35, but it yet is designated on the other graph as being densely populated? That's all.
Chief?
One chief to the other.
He's used to me. Chief Clark, I just want to point out something here, that I'm on the roads early. I start my day very early in the morning, and those roads are patrolled with radar. They are keenly aware of when the high traffic time is, and I know I'm very careful on Queen Anne. I am sympathetic to these folks. I understand. But I think the 35 recommendation to the state is reasonable. I do know that the Harwich Police Department patrols stationary and moving radar when they can. They respond to just about all the calls we go on, and we went on 5,000 last year. If there's only 3 or 4 officers on duty to patrol the entire town, it's not that they don't care, it's that they can't get there. They're doing the best they can. And I will also say, heading to Chatham, I try and go to the corner store every morning. Chatham Police does a very good job of stationary radar on Queen Anne Road. I'm sympathetic. I think a reasonable speed should be recommended to the state, but the police department is doing everything they can.
Thank you.
Not to beat a dead horse, I just want to answer this gentleman's question, I believe, the way it was asked, and I believe the answer is the overlap, sir. That is what Steve identified as the 40-mile-an-hour speed zone. Actually, it is, parts of it are thickly settled. So what we're looking to do is to convert that 40-mile-an-hour speed zone into a 35. That's, I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but there is an overlap there where it's not automatically 30 miles an hour because it's thickly settled. It's, if there's a speed zone sign, the speed zone sign takes precedence over the statutory regulation. There's regulatory and statutory, the way I understand it. Regulatory is speed zone, speed limit 30, 35, 40. If those don't exist in a thickly settled area, it's 30. But we have speed zones all down that section of road. So you have, that's why we're dealing with trying to replace the 40 with the 35 and do enforcement and other signage and whatever else we can come up with.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, my question was really, why doesn't it just go 35 from 124 to Oyster Pond Road rather than stopping it at Obed Brook Road? That way it would be 30 from Obed, that stretch in between Obed Brooks and Oyster Pond is densely populated, but your proposal, Brooke, puts it at 35. Why not just move the break between 30 to 35 down to Obed Brooks Road? Change the locations of the signs.
30 from Rotary all the way down to
That's, the answer to that question is Steve, I believe the answer to that question is Steve felt it was a better argument to go for the 35 rather than 30 because based on the 85th percentile.
And then we're back to a confusing point of the speed changes in the middle of the road.
Right.
30 to
We were looking to have a more consistent
Right.
speed limit throughout the roadway and not to increase from 30 to 35 anywhere, but to decrease and have a consistent speed limit through most of the roadway.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so we currently don't really formally have to take an action, so.
We have a motion and a second.
I know, so.
Motion to accept it.
so-
I'm fine with the motion, or
Okay, so
consensus of the board, however you want to do it. The
All right,
motion's-
so we have the motion. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you. Next item, traffic plan approval for Light the Night Art Week event from 4/26/19 to 5/5/19. Michael?
I move that we approve the traffic plan for Light the Night Art Week event from 4/26/19 to 5/5/19.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, what radio frequency is
All
he
in
on?
favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Confirmation of Joseph
93
Powers as
something.
Assistant Town Administrator effective on May 20th, 2019. Michael?
I move that we approve the confirmation of Joseph Powers as Assistant Town Administrator effective May 20th, 2019.
Second.
Seconded. Did you get the second, Chris?
I did.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Selectmen's article assignments. So we have our articles. Ed?
Well, how many articles are there?
69.
69, so we each get
Roughly
15.
15 or so,
So
a little bit. over.
whatever 15 you want to give me is
I'll take the fractional one.
I'll take whatever you give me. I would rather not, I'd rather not do the Pet Cemetery articles. That would be my only request. I think
Okay.
Don
Pretty
has,
sure that they don't want me to do it either.
Don has expressed his on that. I've expressed my concern. I think somebody
I want the
else.
Herring
right.
River.
You don't know
Herring
anything
run or
about
the
it.
herring
But I'll
Very
take,
well.
I'll take.
You don't know the history of the herring
All
run.
right, that's okay, so, okay, I'm not giving either one of
Take
you.
the housing
That's-
trust.
I think, Julie, just assign them and get, I think the process would be to just assign, send them
Yes,
out, and
I-
we, if
I'll
we have
break-
objection, we can get back
I'll
to
break them
it.
up strategically to avoid Pet Cemetery.
If
I
there's
don't
an
read them all.
article I want to talk about and somebody else gets up, I'll just push them out of my way.
So,
Okay.
Madam Chair, maybe what we'll do is we'll get a list, and then you can put their names. I think that's how we've done it.
Yeah,
I think we did it
If
that way.
anybody
you can
wants to
distribute it
swap
next
them,
meeting.
you can.
Right.
That's right, so that's fine, as long as everybody's in agreement, so we can
Okay.
move. Yeah, that's fine, okay, so we're all in agreement on that. Contracts, $50,000 Dennis Harwich Yarmouth Grant Award. Chris?
This was the, I had alluded to, the town was awarded a $50,000 grant to continue the efforts for the DHY initiative. So I did include that material in there and looking for a vote to authorize execution of that.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
And just to be clear, there's actually $10,000 for our specific DHY aid and $10,000 for the other side,
Thank you.
the Barnstable Dennis.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just so everybody understands it, this was necessitated by the extensive negotiations we went through to get the plan
Because we
more the
need more
way we
time.
wanted it with the budget input and everything. So because of that, it spilled past the legislative session, and we kind of still need the expertise at the committee level.
Right. Okay, so moved and seconded. Any any additional
If I
discussion?
may, I have a question for Chris, if I may.
Okay.
I noticed that part of the responsibility, and I assume it was that, this is our second grant to get aid to do this work. They requested, or they require that a formal report is submitted on what we did with this grant. Has that been submitted? Maybe
Well, the last grant, Larry, was done by the town of Yarmouth, so they acted as the
So they
grant
acted,
award
so we haven't-
agency.
We weren't the agent.
We will have to do it because now we're the grant award agency in this
could you just get that from them and send it to us so we know what the report
Yeah,
was for the
yeah.
last one? That'll give us some guidance going forward.
I think further, the sooner we can get that, the better. I'd like to see a topic wastewater, just so that we can, Don and Larry can give us an update. I know that there's minutes provided, but I'd like a real-time what's happening with the DHY.
Okay. A wastewater update.
I'd go, Michael, one better. I mean, there's been some spirited debate over the past 8 or 10 months. I'd kind of like it to be recorded, I mean, to be honest with you.
Those meetings?
Yeah, because they're not. I mean, it's just a record of it.
In the meantime, Don and I will get together and put something together so we summarize what's
Okay,
going
so
on.
I'll add a wastewater update. to the
DHY
agenda.
is fine.
Yeah.
But while we're on the subject, since Larry brought it up, just so you can get an idea of where all the moving pieces are, the reason we're requesting it is because they cycled out of eligibility in Yarmouth to be able to ask for it.
And
So-
we were informed that we could then,
Right.
right, which is good news. So, we'll get that report, per Larry's,
And we do have a
request.
meeting on Friday morning, this Friday morning, so something after that to provide an update probably makes sense.
Okay, old business.
We have to
Oh,
vote.
sorry. Trying to move along.
That's
Did
one
I
way
get
of doing it.
Did I get a first and a second on that?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Old business, extend the charge appointments of the Harwich Port Parking Committee to June 30th, 2019. Michael?
I move that we approve extending the charge and appointments of the Harwich Port Parking Committee to June 30th, 2019.
I'll second it. I'm wondering, though, is June 30 long enough? You know,
Thought we were doing it
that's
on a-
only a couple months, and we're not going to be able to do anything now till next spring. Anyway, I would suggest if we could extend it, you know, a couple more months at least.
I would prefer we just change the year from 2019 to 2020 in
Yeah.
the charge.
That's what my
I-
motion said.
I thought we were doing
We can
that,
go, I can go with
actually.
that. It just seemed more time than.
Yeah,
than
so
June 30.
2020.
Wherever it says 19, it'll be.
And my second remains the same.
Okay, so, we'll-
Just
yeah.
Just one comment, we have 4 more interested people being on the committee, and we will interview them as soon as Don gives his available dates.
Okay, oh, hey, Richard.
Madam Chair, Richard Waystack, Harwich Port. Just a quick question, does that mean, and I heard someone say nothing's going to be done? Is no action going to be taken on any recommendation this year?
It's not what we said.
Well,
That's not what we're saying. There's still much work that's not finished. We have to modify the charge or else they expire and the committee goes away.
I understand, I heard a comment made, we're not going to do anything this year. Are you going to be acting on any recommendations this year before the summer season starts?
Hope so.
well, yeah, I mean, I think ultimately we had our discussion last week,
And I watched, it was a great discussion, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of valid points
you've
that
been
have
there.
been points over the last year. And I think that we all know something needs to be done in the interim.
I
so-
was intimately aware of what happened last year, and that was one of the suggestions, that we do something so we don't
Right.
get caught again
Right.
in May or June doing nothing, and we go another year without anything being done.
I agree.
Somebody offered your parking lot.
They
No,
often
and
do.
you know,
But that-
$25 a head, you can
But
you
that
can
is
park
a
there.
good point, because I don't think we came to a resolution on that.
So the
If we
answer,
can't, I think it's unlikely we're gonna do a lot this year because of the public outcry we had last week on the old fire station parking lot and moving forward,
well,
so.
I think ultimately we do need to have further discussion based on our discussion last week. And Michael, did you
so
want
the
to
way it
follow
was
up?
left,
The
Richard, or the
signage.
way I remember it
Right.
being left, the parking committee was going to meet again. There was a lot of suggestions made. I will attend that meeting. We're also going to interview some new people, but there was no comment in my mind that nothing would be done this year.
I just want to, because there are other meetings that they're going to be having, and I would just ask you to keep an open mind to take some suggestions for some change for this year, so we don't lose another year and have another horror show back here in July or August about parking in Harwich Port.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you. Don?
The other thing is with the change, just changing the years from 19 to 20 in this thing, the milestone dates are the same, but that doesn't affect the appointments that were made. So, I mean, ultimately, they'd still expire this year, and we'd have to reappoint the committee, just so everybody understands that.
And actually, that's a good, yeah.
I was going to say, Madam Chair, just in your charge that we had in the packet, just for folks at home that may not be following, This is a standing committee appointment shall not exceed August 31st, 2019, so that changes to 20, so that gives an extra year. And then the second date that's in there is the committee shall have sufficient intervals to submit a report no later than May 15th of 2019. So as I understand it, those two dates would change to 2020.
Right. And actually, I have a question on that myself. To May 15th, do we want to bump that back?
No, we already did.
I know, but for next year, do
It
you
says
really want to
interval
wait?
That was done
reports.
specifically to get it to us
I know.
before town meetings, so that we'd actually,
No,
and
I know
before
that.
the elections, so that we would
I
have the
just don't
board
know that
intact to discuss it.
time. Cindy?
Hi, Julie. Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. I just want to let everyone know, because the people that did attend last week didn't know when our meetings were. We are having a meeting April 30th, Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. in the small meeting room next door. Okay.
Thank you. Larry?
Can I ask that we post this meeting, because it's such a popular subject, and maybe more than two of us want to attend this parking meeting.
It is posted.
No, he means.
No, we
It's
need
for the
for
board
us
of
as
Oh,
board,
okay.
in case
Oh,
we
if the
have more
majority of the
people.
board is going to be there, yeah, we'll post.
I'm not sure who's all going to attend, but that gives us the options.
No, that's a good idea. Ed, did you? Sorry.
Yeah, well, as to the comment about whether anything's going to be done, clearly, the sorts of things that can be done for the coming year are more of the soft, suggestive sort of things. Any of the hard regulatory things, the process we found out last week, is going to take bylaw changes and other things that clearly we can't get into place by this summer. And quite honestly, if we wait until getting a report on May 15th of next year, it would be too late to have a bylaw. So I think the report, if that's going to be the recommendation, clearly on that needs to come before the end of the year.
Warm and fuzzy is good to start.
Yep, yep.
And I would agree with that. I think we need to bump that date, but, you know, it won't be hassle. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead with the motion that's to extend the charge, the appointment of the Harwich Port Parking Committee to June 30th, 2020.
So did we take a formal, did we
So
actually vote? We
I don't
took a
think
motion
we-
and a second for sure, but I don't think we took a vote.
No, we didn't take a vote, but do you
I
want
didn't
to?
record the motion in the second. Who was the?
I seconded it.
I made the motion.
Michael made the motion, Larry seconded. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. B, Safe Routes to School Grant Application.
I just put some additional material in. I did get a response back today from Steve Tupper that said included in that grant that MassDOT would contract with AECOM, AECOM, to do some of the design work. So some of the design issues regarding the sidewalk would be addressed in the design. I will try to get additional materials.
Don?
He was alluding to a sidebar conversation we had earlier, but, Madam Chair, the problem I still have with this, and I'm gonna keep at it until they get that at the school end of this. If we get suckered into the end point where we're talking about paying Mass DOT to get designs because we've already accepted stuff, that's not where I was at. What I was at, it's funny because the pictures actually prove it. Yeah, I know that the sidewalks are a mess. But once you get to the middle of town, which I will note, that's where the pictures ended. Once you get to the middle of town, it's unclear to me how anybody would put a 5-foot sidewalk in there, because the grant's strategic goal was to get you from the elementary school safely to the library. And the middle of town has Reds, it has the tile store, it has a bunch of things where the curb line is the curb line. We'd either have to take away parking or move 3 buildings. I mean, no one has showed me yet, you know, before we get way down the road, we get the money and then we're obligated to do stuff, and we all know the grants from the state don't come without tethers, with expectations on their end about what it is they want us to do. I just don't want to get to the point where we're going to have to look like bad guys to say, wait, hold on a second. And there is, all I have seen so far is a definition of the problem. And yet they came up with statistics about the amount of yardage of asphalt that was going to be involved. I mean, all the backup material shows that there was a dollar figure associated with this. How can you develop a dollar figure unless you know what it is you're doing? I haven't seen what it is we're doing. I've only seen a definition of what's wrong.
Yeah,
Well,
the issue I'm having is that we didn't submit the grant, so I'm trying to get the materials, and it was submitted electronically, so
But we're gonna be obligated.
I will track down a more comprehensive submission. I'll make sure I do that.
Well, and the other part of that, when you get that information, can you also have Charlene look at any of the outlay in the center of town in terms of?
And our new engineer.
Yeah, and our new engineer.
well,
I'm just,
Yeah, no,
why not
will
have them
it.
look at it?
One of the things that I do recall, that because of the tight elements along Main Street and because there's the Harwich Center Initiative, Main Street was gonna be avoided, that they did talk about running a sidewalk down parallel to get to the library, so to go the back way, if you would, into the library and not necessarily redoing Harwich Center, because we had ADA initiative for Harwich Center.
Okay. Ed?
yeah, well, as to the layout of Main Street through Howard Center, that, several years ago, 2010, 2011, one of the CPC grants was specifically to do a detailed survey of the property lines and road layouts through Harwich Center, because they are unique in the property ownership there. And so we have that survey on file, and I know that the clearance between the curb line and the Three Sisters is clearly in excess of 5 feet for placing a sidewalk through there. You know, other places, the current sidewalk is not quite 5 feet, but, you know, in front of the parsonage, you would need to pave a bit of the grass lawn. The question is that within our right-of-way, or are we gonna have to take right-of-way along there? Probably the most troublesome part is the section in front of the little park in front of Brooks Academy, where it drops down. That is not very wide. You would probably have to do some fill in where that row of hedges are to create enough space for a sidewalk of 5 feet to be put in, as well as moving back the hedge line on the house next to it.
All I want to see is a plan.
Yeah.
Something other than what's wrong.
Well, we'll get the application and we'll get some type of plan, maybe through, like I said, Charlene and the engineer. Okay. Town administrators report?
Just on, I did work today to get finalized, so we have the first draft, if you would, of the motions for town meeting. So I did send it to all members of the board, obviously going to John Giorgio for the town attorney for review. The one thing, there were several items that the finance committee, and I don't think the selectmen voted in terms of the citizen petition articles. So I have kind of asked, I've met with a few of them, that they are gonna do something from the floor to present that. But in terms of for organization at town meeting, if people have motions, it's just easier to have it printed off beforehand, and then they can sign and submit that. Also, if the selectmen have any presentations that they'd like to see, one of the things I was just thinking about on the, if people ask questions on the Affordable Housing Trust, we have those maps that show the locations. So we'll have some of that stuff as backup information ready to go for people if they ask. But I don't know if there's anything else, maybe after the board members get assigned to the different articles, if there's things that you want to see or you think would be helpful, let me know, and we'll try to get them in there.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chris. Have you taken any steps to have a better screen so people can read what we present? That's been a concern in the past, where, you know, showing off the brick wall.
Better in the
could you
lobby.
hang a sheet, or I think what did the school do?
Yeah, I
They
don't-
they put almost like a graphic, you know. But I think the last couple of years, it's been very difficult to read, especially a map. It's been impossible to read that. And so if we can do anything to help out that, it'd be good.
We'll look at that, Larry. I don't, I don't know if there's any plans to update, I'll have to find out. I have a department heads meeting tomorrow, so I can
You know,
figure that out.
seems like in the very least you could hang a sheet and have it.
Yeah, it's true, it was difficult.
That concludes my comments this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Don, Selectmen's report? Ed?
Nope.
Nope, I'm done. Move to adjourn. Unless you, wait a minute.
No,
wait a minute.
I don't have any.
Sorry, I won't get too fast here.
She's got very little time left, and you kind of even cut that.
I caught myself.
Okay, so we got a motion to,
Second.
did someone second
Yeah,
that?
second.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks.